Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Restoring the Shop Truck. If you weren't able to catch the first two episodes, this is the series where I go through and I am restoring my 1996 Dodge Dakota. So the last thing we need to do with this tailgate and the two fenders that I have currently are go through and block and sand and reprime perfectly for when we go to then paint them afterwards. We're starting with the tailgate today. This is just going to be the final touches before the paint. So let's get in here, take a closer look at the tailgate, see where we're at, and see what we're going to be working on today. And then we will move on to the other fenders as well. Okay, so now as I get a closer look, you can see just how kind of bad this entire bottom of the tailgate is. Up here in the center, actually looks pretty nice, pretty flawless. Main focus at the moment is just getting this down here looking a lot better. Okay, same thing as before. We have the Tech Gold medallion. This is the body filler. I'm getting kind of low on it actually. We'll have to get some more in and then obviously top it off with a little bit of the activator here now. So this is the start of it. We're going to use this, mix them together, and then we're going to start laying some mud on the gate. So this here is a good representation of how actually how bad and how dented this bottom bit is. It's pretty banged up. Definitely worth going through the time and trying to straighten it out. It's going to be one of those things that if I didn't do it and the tailgate got painted and put on the truck, it's just something I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. So take the time, go through, make all your parts look good. Okay, we have the putty, we added some hardener, and let's start adding on to the 10,000 holes we got here. Try and slap her on thick in the bigger hold areas. I don't want to put in areas like here. Can you see that? Yeah, just out here where there's no holes because it's pretty much just a waste of putty. So there's a big hole right here. I'm just gonna slap her on some of these other areas. It's going to be quite the rinse and repeat kind of thing, but we'll let this dry and then we'll go through, sand her down, rinse, and repeat. Okay, so here is the after of actually we had these spots welded. It actually turned out pretty good. Filled them in. As well as up here, there was some cracks going through. Welded them closed. Same thing here, welded it closed. Turned out really nice. All these holes are filled in, cleared. The back side of this is ready to go for its coat of primer. Last thing to do, flip the tailgate over, sand down and block the main side of the tailgate, get that looking good, and then we are ready for primer. So let's jump into it, get this finished up, and then we'll open up the paint booth. Okay, so this is pretty much the big reason why you want to prime once, go over and sand everything again, because it does a really good job of showing the low spots. Within reason, you are able to sand down and flatten, but once you start getting to the low spots and actually hitting the metal, that's when you know you're running out of room. So with this over here, we're hitting metal on the edge. We're going to take just a small amount of mud over here and maybe down here a little bit, just to give it a good covering, because it's actually pretty low. Other than that, the front of the tailgate is pretty good, and we should soon be ready for primer. So I'm gonna throw on a quick bit of mud right here. We'll get that dried, sanded, and we'll get ready to start priming these bad boys. Okay, so here's the bit of skim coat we put on, freshly sanded off, and she is ready to go. Okay, with the tailgate complete, we're moving on to the fenders. We'll take a closer look here, but these are actually in a little bit better condition than the fender was. I don't see us having to do much besides do a nice smooth sanding over them, actually on both of them, and then do a nice final, maybe a once over. There might be a spot or two, I think, along the top of here on one of them. Could use a little bit of filler, but other than that, a smooth sanding. There's some splotches in the primer from the first coat we did, so we'll smooth those down. But let's dive in. We'll take a closer look at some of these spots like I was talking about, and then we'll get to it, start sanding, and if we have to, we'll fill in some holes with some mud. Okay, so here's some of those splotches I was telling you about. This is just, I think this might have been the first fender we primed, and at the time we were priming, we were still trying to figure out the spray gun, so it obviously got a little air, maybe some water or something underneath them. So we were just going to sand these pieces out. This is that bad spot I was talking about, down along the bottom of the fender here where it would obviously bolt on. It is in some rough shape. We will probably have to do something with it. I'm not 100% sure what at the moment, but well, she's ready for primer. We got her all sanded down. We did have a high spot here, so we ended up sanding it all the way down where we got some putty showing. So this one's ready for primer. On to the next one. Same thing here. We'll throw a little guide coat on this, start sanding her down. This one looks to be in about the same shape as the other fender, so we'll see what we're into, but hopefully the same amount of work goes into this one. That was this one. This one wasn't that bad. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, so here we are with fender number 2. We ended up having a high spot here, which you can see by the Bondo showing now. We ended up going through all the layers of primer, and we are leveling this out here to be as smooth as possible. As you can see, it happened on that fender as well. We're almost done going through and smoothing everything out. There is just a little bit of a high spot here yet that I want to finish sanding down, but everything is actually looking pretty good. All right, so here's the deal. Both fenders, tailgate, they are ready for primer. Hopefully the last coat of primer. We took some 320 sandpaper, some real fine sandpaper, I forget, 220, something like that, to try and clear off some of the 180 marks, smooth them out, pretty much get them ready for primer. So now we are going to open the paint booth, get that stuff ready. You know the deal. We have the The medallion, super high build, 2x 2K urethane primer surfacer. We actually had to get a new gallon of it because over the winter, this is actually the first time we're priming this season. Over the winter, we actually wasted half a gallon because it got solid as a rock. So we're using the old spray gun, the old Bessie here. We have the air compressor. I'm gonna open the paint booth here. Probably start on the tailgate, something, doesn't really matter which one we start on. Start on the tailgate, get that hung up, and then we have some etch primer to try and spray some of the bare metal, get that ready, get it set up, and we'll start ready with the primer here. So just need to get a few things cleared off the bench here so we don't get some overspray, because this is obviously where stuff gets hung in our beautiful paint booth. And we'll get this ready for some primer. Okay, spray booth officially open. So what we got to do here before we go and throw the coat of primer on it, like I said, I want to take some of the etch primer, cover up over the bare spots that are on the panel, as well as the backside where we welded. Get those covered up. Then we'll be ready for some primer. XO Rust Easy Care Primer Rust Preventatives Enamel stuff. In good shape here. Enough. Maybe we should wipe it down. Vacuum thinner might work. It's probably okay. I don't know what I'm doing. You may be asking, why do you need to put some etch primer over it before you prime it after over this dries? I don't know. It's just what I was told to do, so I'm doing it. Looks good to me. Instantly sticky. Okay, here is the before. You can see where I did the etch priming. Gotta let that flash on. This is the beforehand and the back side as well. Good before. Now all we need to do, mix up some primer and spray it down and rinse and repeat for those two. I am excited. Okay, let's give her a pour.
Alright, we took a few test passes. I just wanted to see how it was. So we're going to go ahead and finish coating this stuff up, and then we'll see how we make out. We're going to really try and coat this primer on, try and hide some of the blotches and bad spots. We're probably going to use quite a bit of primer on it. I also got a mask for this time. Alright, so we've done some pretty solid coats on both sides. This panel's probably going to take the most primer because we're doing both sides. We don't have to do both sides on the fenders, but we used about, this was full when I started, or about just under half. The goal is to obviously slather this stuff on here to cover up most of the blemishes, like I said. So I'm going to keep going until we're empty, and then we'll do a once over, look at everything, and see if we need to mix any more, try and cover up anything else. Alright, we have fender number 1 up here now. We tried to put a little bit more reducer in this batch of primer, try and get it spraying a little bit better. On the tailgate, it sort of put a texture on it, which we're going to have to block off. But we tried to put an extra bit of reducer in this to try and let it spray. So we're going to go ahead and coat this down. We have a lot of primer in here this time, so put some good coats of primer on it and we'll see how it turns out. Alright, so we've used about half of the container of primer, and it's looking really good. It's definitely spraying a lot nicer, more reduced than it was when we did the tailgate. Alright, here we go with fender number 2. Last piece of the puzzle for the time being. Bunch more primer in the canister. Hose it down here, see how she turns out. The last fender looked really good, a lot better than the tailgate did. We added more reducer when we did that one. We did the same thing for here. Hopefully we get the same results. Let's jump into it.
Okay, so the panels are finally done with the exception of a few minor details. This one was the last panel that we did, and the gun actually seemed to have gotten a little jammed up and gunky, and it actually made quite a rough spray on it. Tailgate's really good, clean, as well as this fender is really good and clean. These panels are officially ready for paint, with the exception of a little bit of sanding yet that will need done, but they won't need actually another coat of primer. So the next time you see these panels, they will be getting ready for paint. As far as the next steps on the next episode goes, I'm not exactly sure what will happen between tearing the truck apart now. That's pretty much what's next. We might use this tailgate here as a test panel, see sort of what the color that I've chosen looks like. I'm super excited for that, by the way. And but we either will start tearing into the truck. That's pretty much the next step. I'm gonna order some box sides to get the truck rolling, get it back to looking pristine. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it very much, and we'll catch you in the next episode.